This is one of my favorite Dylan songs, I gotta confess, but it also is one of the easiest things out there in the world to play. We're going to take a look at Simple Twist of Fate. Now this was done from his 1975 album Blood on the Tracks, and a song that he has like rewritten and rearranged and changed the lyrics to and changed the chords to continually over the years. So I guess in spite of, or in the interest of simplicity, we're only going to take a look at the studio version from Blood on the Tracks and not really talk too much about everything that happened to this over the years. Different keys, different lyrics, anyway. And even immediately in 1975 when the Rolling Thunder Review started, he already changed a little bit of it. But it's a very simple strumming song. The strumming, and we're in an open tuning, so we're also going to talk though about how to play this in standard tuning and really get pretty close to the same sound. Now we're in an open E tuning. I am not a fan of tuning your guitar up to open E. And I'll explain why. It's just bringing the strings up a whole step. You've got a couple of them you got to bring up a whole step, and a couple and one you have to bring down a whole step. We'll talk, or down, up a half step. Don't say too many things at the same time. I'll talk about the tuning in a separate segment. But we also are going to look at it in standard tuning in the key of E, without a capo or anything like that, and a couple of the chords will be a little bit more difficult, but we'll get really close to the same sound. So it's very easy to play in open E. It's a little harder to play in standard, but you still get the same really open sounds well, the sounds that we get in open E are a lot of open strings, particularly the two highest strings. So, and there's just a couple of very simple chord shapes that happen in here. So coming up, I will walk through the tab and the chords to Simple Twist of Fate in E first, and then in standard tuning. The philosophy, or the technique, I guess, of an open tuning, particularly open E, but many other open tunings, are that you tune all of the strings so that they're one of the chord, or one of the notes in the chord. So if I wanted to be in an open G tuning, play a G chord, figure out what notes we have. We have G, B, and D. Every string has to be changed to be one of those. So in the case of G, what you would typically do is tune every string that isn't a G, a B, or a D down to the nearest one of those notes. So my E string would go down to a D. My A string would go down to a B, would go down to a G. The D string, G string, and B string are all fine, and the top E string would go down to D. So tuning your strings down is a lot safer on your guitar than going into the equivalent tuning. Higher would be an A tuning. Now if you think about playing a G chord, what I'd have here is three open strings anyway. They're fine. I have to retune the three strings I have fingers on. So those are the three that are going to change. If I want to be in an A tuning, I have three strings down. They're happen to be the other three strings. So what I would do to get into an A tuning is tune each of the second, third, and fourth strings up to those notes. The B would come up to C sharp, the G would come up to A, and the D would come up to E. And then when I strummed it open, I'd have an A chord, or an A tuning. An E tuning, getting to the point. An E tuning, think about an E chord. I've got three strings. Well, I could just retune those three strings. I could leave the sixth, second, and first just as they are at E's and B's. The three notes, of course, in an E chord are E, G sharp, the third, and B. So the three notes I'm playing here with my fingers, the third string I've got a G sharp. Tune the third string up to G sharp. Good to go. The fourth string is a D. Tune it up to the E that I'm playing right here. Take it up a whole step, and I'm good to go. Same thing on the fifth string. Tune it up to B, and we now have, with my hand not on the guitar, we'd have this. It would sound like an E chord. Now, we could, instead of that, tune the other strings proportionately to come down to the same arrangement of notes. So if you think about our E chord, what we have here is an E, the root, a B, the fifth, another E, another root, G sharp, the third, and then a B and an E, the fifth and the root again. So rather than come up to those notes, I'm going to take 4 strings down to become an open D tuning. Let's take a look now at the tablature or the chords in our open E version. And many of these chords can be played really just with 2 fingers. This is kind of the beauty and simplicity of open tunings, is you don't usually have a lot you have to do with your left hand in a simple strumming song like this. Speaking of the strumming, let's take a look at the first chord. Our E chord is going to be played with just 2 notes. We're going to leave the 1st and 2nd and 6th strings are going to be open on a lot of chords. So we need the 4th fret of the D string, which is really going to be a G sharp now. I'm not going to go too far into the names of the notes. In an open tuning capoed, anyway. But our E chord is going to be played with just the 4th and 5th frets on the 4th and 5th strings. And I would use my 2nd and 3rd fingers for them. The strum pretty consistently throughout the song. We want to do a slightly partial bass focused strumming thing. So on the first beat of each measure, we kind of want to hear heavy on the bass. I'm kind of strumming like 3 strings there. And then move the strum up to the higher string. So something like this.